Guys, I'm torn. I don't know what we should do about this head coaching thing. Because Antonio Pierce, by all means, deserves the job. I said as much. He wins the Charger game. Let me try that again. He wins the Chiefs game. He has the job. And there was nothing in the Colts to the Broncos game that made me think otherwise. But then you watch the national championship and you do a deep dive on Harbaugh and you see that everywhere he's gone, he's won. Stanford won. 49ers won. Michigan won. Winner. And then Mike Vrabel gets fired. Coach of the year 2 years ago. Won a lot of games this year he shouldn't have with a terrible roster. And you think, well, maybe he could be the guy. And then Bill Belichick parts ways with the New England Patriots. And all of a sudden, the greatest coach in the history of coaches is on the market. And all of this is happening when it seemed like we already had our guy. So this video will be dedicated to talking through the emotions that I'm feeling about the head coaching position. We'll get to Max Crosby too, don't you worry. I feel like what's being lost in the shuffle of all of this. When's the last time staff from the Raiders have been requested to be interviewed for other jobs? You know, Patrick Graham was requested to be interviewed to be a head coach somewhere. Champ Kelly was requested to be a GM somewhere. Antonio Pierce is being requested to get interviewed. When's the last time that's happened? That's a good problem to have. Hopefully we get to keep Patrick Graham and doesn't get one of these head coaching jobs. Let's start with AP. And as I go through all the coaching options here, comment below your thoughts on each one. Tell me your power rankings of where you'd want to go coaching-wise, GM-wise, because we got this guy Dodds too. It's just a lot happening, okay? And people are requesting trades. It's a lot, but it's always a lot with us. I wouldn't want to have it any other way. And then at the end, I think I'll get into who I think should be the coach and who I think will be the coach. Because right now, I still haven't made my mind up. I press record, and I just don't know. Let's start with AP. What does he do well? Well, it's clear that he injected these guys with Michael Jordan's secret stuff or something because they were playing the hardest I've ever seen a Raider team play in a long, long time. The defense absolutely flipped itself, complete 180 from when he took over. He started playing people like Malcolm Kuntz, and he started adding more guys to the fold like Jack Jones. Was he the best game manager? No, but he wasn't a head coach when the season started, and he was learning as he went. I also love that he brought in guys like Adam Gase and Marvin Lewis and Tom Coughlin to talk to the people that he has playing for him and to himself to learn from these guys who have coached in playoff games and in Super Bowls. I think he showed a big-time willingness to learn how to become a great head coach, and I only think he can go up from here. He clearly has the support of the locker room, and Devontae and Max have been saying basically if he's not here, I'm out. Max Crosby requesting a trade is something that I'd like to talk about now. I've seen Raider fans saying that he's being selfish and that that's not something that a Raider player should do, and to those people, I would kindly tell you to shut the hell up. This guy has the Raiders insignia tattooed on his chest. He would have a fifth coach in 6 years if we had a new head coach. He doesn't want to go through another rebuild. He's tired of losing, and he wants stability. He thinks he knows what's best for the Raiders. Regardless whether or not that's true, he thinks he's doing what's best to keep the progression of the team forward. And if you disagree with that, that's okay. But if all of a sudden you're going to hop off the Max Crosby bandwagon because he's saying if there's 6 coaches in 5 years or whatever it is, just shut up. Just stop. So Antonio Pierce is someone who I would like to see get the job. Is he the best option? I'm so torn. Can you see me in real time going back and forth between him and Harbaugh? Let's talk about Vrabel first. Vrabel is a guy that I didn't expect to be available, so I didn't put a lot of thought into him. I think he's a fantastic coach. And to be honest with you, if there wasn't an AP or a Harbaugh out there, I would be banging the drum to get Vrabel. And if Vrabel doesn't get a job, we should just do something. Get him, put him, stick him somewhere. If Patrick Graham leaves, we'll take him as defensive coordinator. Like, this guy is an absolute baller of a head coach. He's a leader, man. He's a Dan Campbell AP type, but he's a little more cerebral than these guys. I think he's kind of the ideal coaching candidate, but, you know, like I said, I think there's other options out there. And the Bill Belichick thing, I'll talk real quick about. I just don't want to, this is going to sound cool. I don't know how this is going to come off. I don't want a team that's constantly on edge around their head coach. And I know that people said Bill Belichick sneaky has a sense of humor, and I've seen clips and blah, blah, blah. But I just don't want to do the Patriot thing again. Like, I just did this. I don't want to see a team that doesn't enjoy going to the locker room and having fun. Listen, does he win a lot of games that way? Sure. And will he win a lot of games with the team that he goes to, depending on the roster? Probably. And he's the best coach ever, 100%. I just don't want to do the Patriot thing again. So Vrabel is a great candidate, and Belichick is the best ever. But those I'm kind of putting on the back burner. If we don't get AP or Harbaugh, then we got to go get one of them, preferably Vrabel. Let's talk about Harbaugh, because there's really no doubt in my mind. We signed Jim Harbaugh, we'd be in the playoffs within 3 years. No doubt in my mind. And another thing to consider is if we don't hire Jim Harbaugh, he will be the head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers. So we're going to have a division with Sean Payton, Andy Reid, and Jim Harbaugh, and we're going to roll with Antonio Pierce. I'm not saying that in any sort of way. I'm just saying that's what the reality of the situation is going to be. You might be saying, absolutely, let's do it, and I might be one of those people too. But that's just going to be the reality. So that's something to consider. Jim Harbaugh is a winner. That's literally all he does since the day he was born. He will strip the roster down, keeping a few pieces, assuming people still want to play for us after signing another head coach, and start completely over. JJ McCarthy might be our head coach. These are quarterback. These are all things to consider. And as I sit here and discuss with you the pros and cons of Harbaugh, I've made my mind up. As good as I think Antonio Pierce is, I think he can only get better. And I do not want to sit through another rebuild when the roster is finally at a place where all you need to do is find your quarterback. Might be on the roster, might not be. And if Antonio Pierce and whoever the GM is, Dodds, Champ, whatever, can figure out a way to get a quarterback in here, or to transform a quarterback we already have, to play at a higher level than we had last year, we can make the playoffs next year. It's all about who Antonio Pierce brings in as his OC and who is the GM. Because as much as people are banging on the drum for Champ Kelly, he hasn't had a chance to really prove himself. Now, we might give him that chance. And he's interviewed with other people, so people clearly like him. But this Dodds guy, I've heard from people that he's a diehard Raider fan. He's a Raider fan his whole life. And Mark Davis loves him. Could we bring him in and keep Champ somehow? I don't know. The Colts scouting department is pretty damn good too. So he comes from a long line of pretty good draft picks. We need to figure out a way to get an offensive coordinator in the building and keep him in tandem with Antonio Pierce, because I don't want to bring Jim Harbaugh in and go through another rebuild. I'm only on this rock for so long, just like everybody else. I do not have time to sit through more development and more meshing of the team. Would it be fun to say, who's got it better than us? Nobody. Absolutely. But it's also just fun to scream Raiders. Antonio Pierce, who I think is likely to get the job, is my vote. Let's talk about offensive coordinators for a second here before we hop off, because I have a list of people in my mind that I'd like to discuss, just throw out there. Wes Welker is the wide receiver coach for the Miami Dolphins. We know the Miami Dolphins have a great offense, not so much in Kansas City yesterday, yikes. But I feel like he's learned a lot from Mike McDaniel, and we're going to have to find someone who's going to be stepping up from a positions coach to a quarterback or to an offensive coordinator position. I think Wes Welker's interesting. There's another guy out there. His name is Cliff Kingsbury. Ever heard of him? He's a quarterback's coach for Caleb Williams. What if we trade up, draft Caleb Williams, sign Cliff Kingsbury to be our OC? The offense was not the problem for the Cardinals. In fact, they actually won a lot of games, you know, relative to how good the Cardinals have been recently. Cliff Kingsbury can cook up some offense now. He might not be a great head coach, but that's just something to consider. How about Josh McCown, the quarterback's coach for the Panthers? Listen, he's not doing himself any favors with the way Bryce Young has played, but I feel like he's got a good football mind. I just liked watching him play. He was a good quarterback. So Josh McCown is someone I'm just throwing out there. And then there's a wild card to this whole thing that I feel like, you know, Mark Davis has a history with this guy. We have a history with this guy. Derek Carr has a history with this guy. Bill Musgrave, the guy that transformed Derek Carr into an MVP candidate, he's the offensive assistant right now for the Cleveland Browns, the team that got Joe Flacco to play pretty well. After he left us, Bill Musgrave that is, he went to the Broncos where he was the offensive coordinator for 3 years, but they didn't have a quarterback, so that wasn't his fault. Then he went to Cal for 2 years. Now he's the offensive assistant for the Browns. Could we bring Musgrave back? These are options that I'm just throwing out there. I said Bieniemy before. You know, there's other options out there. Joe Brady's the interim offensive coordinator for the Bills. What do you guys think? Offensive coordinators, coaches, let me know. Drop likes, drop comments. That's all I got, I think. I don't know if there's anybody else that runs into my head coordinator-wise. I'd like to keep Bo on as the quarterback's coach. I've said that before. I think he did good as a quarterback's coach. I just don't think he's ready to be an offensive coordinator. AP needs to find his OC. If he could find his OC, then everything else will fall into place. Then we got to trade up or don't draft the quarterback or don't trade for Kirk Cousins. I don't know. We'll do videos on all that. Patreon.com/ALLaBorde Raiders. You can get your name at the end of the credits like these guys, executive producers. They are. You can get Discord access, early access to videos, ad-free content, Madden subscriber link, blah, blah, blah. You know the whole thing. Please be sure to subscribe. It is free. Everyone knows how to you. I love you guys, and I'll see you next time.